Ina Yanuk, born in 1936, lived in Minsk, died in 1942 in Minsk at age 6, killed by Nazis. Abraham Zitron, lived in Humaine, died in Auschwitz at age 6, killed by Nazis. Shandul Van, born in 1936, lived in Uman, died in Uman in 1941 at age 5, killed by Nazis. Tibor Shatan, date of birth 1934, lived in Ungvar, died in Kamenets-Podolsk in 1941 at age 7, killed by Nazis. Chaim Zatzman, born in 1937, lived in Grodzic Mazowiecki, died in Treblinka in 1942 at age 5, killed by Nazis. Yudmila Variat, born in 1940, lived in Krivoy Rog, died in 1942 at age 2, killed by Nazis. Salo Kleiman, born in 1935, lived in Bielsko-Biala, died in Auschwitz in 1942 at age of 7, killed by Nazis. Elvire Cohen, born in 1941, lived in Paris, died in Auschwitz in 1942 at the age of 1, killed by Nazis. Edie Schwartz, lived in Galicia, died at age 10, killed by Nazis. Emik Altman, born in 1938, lived in Poroslo, died in Auschwitz in 1944 at the age of 6, killed by Nazis. Majdi Shulman, born in 1938, lived in Zamosk, died in Zamosk in 1940 at the age of 2, killed by Nazis. Ernst Enfield, born in 1938, lived in Zamartiminti, died in Auschwitz in 1944, killed by Nazis at the age of 6. Hendel Schwarz, born in 1936, lived in Borislaw, died in Borislaw in 1943, killed by Nazis at the age of 7. Katia Press, born in 1936, lived in Nadzahon, died in Balabanakov, died in 1942 at the age of 6, killed by Nazis. Ilonka Weinberger, lived in Novoselykia, died in Transnistria, killed by Nazis at the age of 8. Lael Rombalska, born in 1936, died in Treblinka in 1942, killed by Nazis at the age of 6. Aggie Weingarten, born in 1935, lived in Okormezo, died in Auschwitz in 1944, killed by Nazis at the age of 9. Joseph Friedman, born in 1936, died in Skerizo Kamina in 1943, killed by Nazis at the age of 7. Gary Stryker, born in 1941, lived in Pistani, died in 1944, killed by Nazis at the age of 2. Lilia Kubrovsky, lived in Lodz, killed by Nazis at the age of 10. Andres Kirelli, born in 1942, lived in Cluj, killed by Nazis at the age of 1. Janusz Silberman, born in 1938, lived in Nagyvarad, died in Auschwitz, killed by Nazis at the age of 6. Julia Schweid, born in 1935, lived in Mukasevo, died in Auschwitz in 1944, killed by Nazis at the age of 9. Miklos Spry, lived in Tizipolgar, died in Auschwitz in 1944, killed by Nazis at the age of 10. Shmuel Wolrak, born in 1933, lived in Czechoslovakia, died in Treblinka in 1944, killed by Nazis at the age of 9. Jean Friedman, lived in Lyon, died in 1943, killed by Nazis at the age of 7. Shaja Unikowski, born in 1930, lived in Kalisz, killed by Nazis at the age of 9. Gregory Singer, born in 1934, lived in Tolna, killed in Auschwitz in 1944 at the age of 10 by Nazis. Janos Waldman, born in 1939, lived in Metsutar, killed in Auschwitz in 1944 at the age of 5 by Nazis. Laszlo Selmes, born in 1935, lived in Tres, killed in Auschwitz in 1944 at the age of 9 by Nazis. Lilia Barskaya, born in 1936, lived in Simferopol, died in Primiskala in 1943 at the age of 7, killed by Nazis. Louis Achathan, born in 1938, lived in Amsterdam, died in Auschwitz in 1942, killed by Nazis at the age of 4. Miriam Silber, lived in Dvinsk, killed in Dvinsk at the age of 7 by Nazis. Pinkas Weisberg, born in 1933, lived in Sosnowiec, killed in Auschwitz in 1942 at the age of 9 by Nazis. Saskia Weisel, born in 1938, lived in Fosoviso, killed by Nazis in Auschwitz in 1944 at the age of 6. Zisla Zarecki, born in 1933, lived in Konikwo, killed in Treblinka in 1942 at the age of 9 by Nazis. Mariez Solevich, born in 1939, lived in Subat, died in Subat in 1941 at the age of 2, killed by Nazis. Shayala Lieberman, lived in Debrawa, died in 1942, killed by Nazis at the age of 8. Marek Ogenstein, born in 1938, lived in Sarajevo, died in Javakovo in 1942, killed by Nazis at the age of 4. Lillian Friedman, born in 1936, lived in Paris, was killed by Nazis at the age of 6. Velvel Valoon, lived in Jraziwati, died in Novoswianki in 1941, killed by Nazis at the age of 6. Celia Weinstein, born in 1938, lived in Kiev, died in Babia Yar in 1941, killed by Nazis at the age of 3. Itzhak Yurkovitz, lived in Zyrtia, died in Bershad killed by Nazis at the age of 8. Raya Srulevic lived in Odessa, killed by Nazis at the age of 5. Sonny Ressler lived in Kozais, killed by Nazis at the age of 8. Arlette Kaim, born in 1937, lived in Paris, killed in Auschwitz in 1942 at the age of 5 by Nazis. Guido Abraham Walks lived in Silesia, killed in Auschwitz at the age of 9 by Nazis. Miriam Slepak lived in Kaunas, died in Kaunas at the age of 10 by Nazis. Mikhail Beiserman, born in 1940, lived in Bergachev, died in Bergachev in 1941, killed by Nazis at the age of 1. Cecil Grun, born in 1933, lived in Siget, died in camp at the age of 10, killed by Nazis. Dvora Dublansky, born in 1940, lived in Woranowo, died in Woronaro in 1942, killed by Nazis at the age of 2. Jidko Rice, born in 1936, lived in Ujeli, killed in Auschwitz at the age of 7 in 1944, killed by Nazis. Josuas Jenny, born in 1941, died in Auschwitz in 1944, killed by Nazis at the age of 3. Jinya Sidlowski lived in Warsaw, killed by Nazis at the age of 6. Edessa Frankiel, born in 1938, lived in Mixanakow, died in Treblinka in 1942, killed by Nazis at the age of 4. Avramel Svortman lived in Novosilicia, died in Transnistria in 1941, killed by Nazis at the age of 10. Edith Mex, born in 1932, lived in Torporowdy, died in Transfer in 1941, killed by Nazis at the age of 9. Nomi Scheifler, born in 1936, lived in Arad, died in Mefkir in 1944, killed by Nazis at the age of 8. Israel Gepstein, born in 1938, lived in Rezgny, died in Rezgny in 1941, killed by Nazis at the age of 3. Ruin Figa, born in 1938, lived in Warsaw, killed by Nazis at the age of 10. Haya Sidlansky, born in 1932, lived in Radzin, died in Treblinka in 1942, killed by Nazis at the age of 9. Joanne Cohen, lived in Skopje, died in Treblinka in 1943, killed by Nazis at the age of 6. Zygmunt Eichhorn, died in Belzec, killed by Nazis at the age of 7. Liuda Previn, born in 1937, lived in Zaporizhzhia, died in Georgievsky in 1941, killed by Nazis at the age of 4. Betya Sukaya lived in Cherkasy, died in Dnipropetrovsk in 1941, killed by Nazis at the age of 4. Kaya Vizble lived in Chmaravatsi, died in Kamensk-Podolsky in 1941, killed by Nazis at the age of 8. Jamila Terabulus lived in Kavala, died in Treblinka in 1943, killed by Nazis at the age of 9. Elijah Barkash lived in Negrovo, died in Birkenau in 1944, killed by Nazis at the age of 8. Gala Jakubowicz lived in Nabi, died in Chelmno at the age of 9. Jacques Pereboom, born in 1941, lived in Amsterdam, died in Auschwitz in 1942, killed by Nazis at the age of 1. Dawid Michaelowicz, born in 1940, lived in Lask, died in Chelmno, killed by Nazis at the age of 2. Dawid Perelberg lived in Warsaw, died in Warsaw in 1941, killed by Nazis at the age of 3. Bale Shmulevaux, born in 1935, lived in Slobodka, died in Fort 9 in 1941, killed by Nazis at the age of 6. Henya Perlmutter lived in Lublin, killed by Nazis at the age of 4. Etu Polanus, born in 1932, lived in Ladsdigie, killed in Ladsdigie in 1941 at the age of 9, killed by Nazis. Valery Opengun, born in 1939, died in Kirovograd at the age of 2, killed by Nazis. Jonathan Schmulweiks lived in Lakowikes, killed at the age of 10 by Nazis. Fritz Reigler lived in Lachenbach, killed at the age of 4 by Nazis. Masya Borgman lived in Borislaw, died in Borislaw at the age of 4, killed by Nazis. Poldek Lausy, born in 1932, lived in Maikow, died in Kielce in 1942, killed by Nazis at the age of 10. Henia Meyerowitz, born in 1943, lived in Kassel, killed in Auschwitz in 1944 at the age of 1 by Nazis. Monachka Leinica, born in 1932, lived in Mitzalv, killed in Mitzalv in 1941 at the age of 2, killed by Nazis. Hari Rosen, born in 1937, lived in Brezina, killed by Nazis at the age of 4. Guido Martyr, born in 1935, lived in Novo Silesia, died in Komarinci in 1941, killed by Nazis at the age of 6. Baal Herkovics, born in 1938, lived in Botvalva, killed in Auschwitz in 1943, killed by Nazis at the age of 5. Leibel Parkchek, born in 1937, lived in Pinsk, died in Pinsk in 1941, killed by Nazis at the age of 4. Fiorella Anticola, lived in Roma, died in Birkenau in 1943, killed by Nazis at the age of 9. Yelena Morkina lived in Voroshilovgrad, died in Voroshilovgrad in 1942, killed by Nazis at the age of 5. Jakob Mardowski, born in 1938, lived in Bokachato, died in Chelmno in 1942, killed by Nazis at the age of 4. Arje Briek, born in 1935, lived in Frampol, died in Frampol in 1942, killed by Nazis at the age of 7. Zina Lvovskaya, born in 1940, lived in Izyaslav, killed by Nazis at the age of 2. Haya Bereziniak, lived in Kovel, died in Kovel at the age of 8, killed by Nazis. Alexander Moskanov, born in 1940, lived in Magadan, died in Odessa in 1941, killed by Nazis at the age of 1. Chaya Mauskov, born in 1936, lived in Volosky, killed in Auschwitz in 1944, killed by Nazis at the age of 8. Joel Rodriguez, born in 1935, killed in Sobibor in 1943, killed by Nazis at the age of 8.